Speaking of friend of the show, Andrew Edwards, a few days after he came on the show, like I said, I saw another one of his posts on my timeline. It was interesting because I started seeing all his creator-based posts rather than his tech-based posts on my timeline, which I don't know if he was like...
This is becoming the Andrew Fan podcast.
In fact, we're going to rename it that. But after he came on the show, he posted this to Threads, which says, my latest video on the changes Asha Sharma is making at Xbox is pulling 47% of watch time from TV. That is wild to me. Now, remember, Andrew has been around for a long time, and this is one of the reasons why it's wild to him. He says a few years back, this kind of video would have been dominated by mobile at over 70%. It says a lot about where YouTube is going. People are putting creators on the biggest screen in their house, sitting back and watching like it's prime time. For gaming content especially, that feels perfect. What device do you watch YouTube on the most? And then he gave us the actual breakdown here of what this video that he posted has. So like you said, 47% on TV, 27% on mobile phone, 19% on computer, and 6% on tablet. Benji, we've talked a lot about the moment that you heard about this phenomenon kind of going on. Tell me about that moment, and then I want to show you another example of this really quick because we're going to dive deep into what I think is the most important thing for creators to know in 2026 about their content strategy. But tell me the moment that you experienced where you heard somebody talking about TV growing in the YouTube space.
Yeah. Are you talking about VidCon like 10 years ago, or you're talking about the more recent?
I think the more recent one when it was actually happening.
Yeah. You know, Patty Galloway, a YouTube expert, is that the one you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. In 2020, 2021, it was like a dark, stormy fall night, and I'm on a long drive. And guess what? Listening to a podcast. In this case, I was listening off my phone that's playing in my car's speakers. But Patty Galloway mentioned the number one takeaway from that year, so that would have been probably 2021, was the growth in the percentage of people watching on their television. And I remember thinking, that's interesting that of everything, right? The person interviewing him said, like, everything you found out, anything that you guys do and you teach and you're diving into analytics, what's like the most surprising? And that was the one thing he brought up. And I didn't really think that much of it. I just like, oh, cool. Like,
well, because the percentages were still small at that time.
Very small.
Yeah.
So like in this case, it was like 47%. I'm telling you, at that time, it was like 5 to 10, maybe 11, 12%.
And he's like, wow, 10% on
Crazy,
the TV.
Right?
Yeah.
And just to give you more context, I don't know if you want me to go through the timeline right now, but to give you more context, when YouTube started, the TV wasn't even a thought at all. And as time went on, it was less and less the case because number one, the device was getting smaller and more mobile, but also less people were kind of like owning TVs. They were cable cutting, or they were even like going on TV. Okay?
Yeah, like I know like a lot of young people at through that period of like the mid 2010s onward were not even buying TVs, and you'd see like they were just watching on their laptops maximum, if not just their phones.
We'd like have family members who are like starting out being creators, or they're living on their own, and they will often say, yeah, we're just watching our laptop. I don't even own a TV. I'm not signing up for cable. So what was happening in 2021 that was really unique though? Everyone was stuck at home, at least for 2020 and a little bit of 2021. And they were on their phones a lot, but they got tired of it. This is, I think, where brain rot really happened. And what would you do when you still want to consume content, but you didn't want to do it on your phone? You switch to the TV. Your old pal hanging up on the wall, has the channel changer or the remote control, and you can sit back and relax. And you weren't necessarily watching YouTube, though. You were watching Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO, maybe a little bit of TV mix in there. Maybe you actually still had a DVD player. Let's run that poll. How many people have a DVD player, okay? But what happened over time? You started watching content on YouTube on the TV too, because of the smart TVs, because of the YouTube app, and because of, I actually believe, Chromecast was probably one of their biggest aces up their sleeve. If you don't know what that is, it's not just the Chromecast input. It's like an actual device that Google used to send out basically for free. Yeah. At events, they would give them out.
Yeah,
hella smart. Because you plug that into HDMI, it becomes an input, and you could cast what was on your YouTube based apps onto the TV. Or in the case of a lot of platforms, even like Amazon.
Yeah.
You could cast that to the TV from your phone if you didn't have a smart TV.
It gave you a bridge between the thing you were doing on your phone and moving it to the biggest screen in your house.
It was creating a behavior of like, oh, I want to watch content on TV and then I want to watch YouTube on my TV because it just makes sense to have it on a bigger screen and because this is a longer video. And speaking to Andrew, can I make a comment about him?
Please.
It's funny. I wish he would like hit me up or hang out with me more often. We're like good friends, but it's because of the type of content he creates. He's always telling stories. I don't know if you've seen it. You're the one that inspired him to a certain degree.
Really?
To do these more like documentary style coverages of tech because it's very much like reviews, right? It's very like not even objective. It's very much robotic and it's analytical versus like telling a story.
Yes.
Almost all his intros now, he's starting it like he's telling a story.
Really?
He's
That's
like
cool.
capturing your attention, not going right at the product. He'll do a little history lesson or he'll bring up like, have you ever noticed this about your television?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that makes
Rather than
sense.
saying, hey, Sony's got this new thing. And they're longer videos.
Yes, yeah.
So it lends itself to want to watch it on a television. More importantly, his audience. They probably know this about him. So that, hey, instead of watching this content on my phone, they might be waiting to watch it on the TV, putting it in the thing. And then say they're not, but they're like on their phone, but they happen to be next to the TV. Oh, let me just cast this up there.
Yeah, exactly. And so this phenomenon that you're bringing up, Patty Galloway and Mr. Beast is an example of this. Of course, Andrew, like you just said, is an example of this. And actually, Andrew's post inspired Stephen Robles here, who's another tech creator that I love, to quote tweet him and basically say this, which is that I'm seeing the same more and more YouTube viewers on TV. And some videos, like my $3,000 movie player, currently at 135,000 views, even higher at 64% of those views happening on the TV themselves, which kind of makes sense, right? Because it's targeted, to your point, to that audience of people who want home theaters. So of course they're going to be watching on their big TV, right?
Yes.
So this more and more, again, this is not new. We talk about this a ton on the show. I don't know that we've actually come at it from this angle, even though this is one of the oldest stories that we've told in terms of this kind of new era of TV. And I think that there's sort of two big angles that we need to come at this from in order to understand that most important thing that creators need to know in 2026 in terms of making their strategy for posting on any platform. Here's the first angle. The first angle comes from the perspective of YouTube itself. Now, for you, Benji, this is where I'm going to have you actually tell the story of YouTube. But the way I like to think about this is in terms of devices. So in the beginning, right, tell me what the first device was when you were getting started on YouTube, and then bring me through the eras until we land at the place that we're at now.
A desktop computer literally was the first device, okay? And I remember kids in the computer room watching YouTube on the computers that we had for the kids. And so you're talking a big CRT monitor. You probably don't even know what that is, most people, right? But CRT monitor.
I'm trying to draw
it's like
it
a
right
box, and it was connected to another box, and that was your first device. And then if you were privileged enough, you also had a laptop. But laptop was probably a small percentage compared to most desktop. That was
So
at
what
the
year?
beginning.
What year?
2005.
Okay, 2005. And tell me about the first time you encountered this. Like, how did you know that YouTube was a thing on desktop computers at that point?
Kids were watching breakdancers from other parts of the country and learning how to do those moves. And I was watching these kids watch other kids and learn things that it took us like a year to learn. They would do it in 2 weeks because of YouTube and the computer and the internet, right? It was much more tied to the internet back then than
Yes.
it is now because everything's connected to the internet. It's not even a thought in our mind, okay? But that was the very beginning. And that's why I think the next era, right? I would call it the laptop era. And the tablet is kind of included.
But basically the type of computer you can take with you wherever you go.
Well, why was that? It's just because computers got cheaper. That means laptops became more accessible. And who wants a big CRT monitor desktop computer compared to a laptop? Because what is a laptop compared to a desktop computer? It's more mobile.
Oh, yeah, true.
You can
Take
bring
it around the
anywhere
house.
of the house.
You can take it with
it
you.
outside.
Exactly.
YouTube, goes with you, right?
Yeah,
as
very
long
true.
as you plug into the internet. But guess what was being birthed? More Wi-Fi, right? Less connected to like an actual wire, more Wi-Fi at that point. Okay, that was 2010. By the way, great job drawing all this.
Thank you. Appreciate it. My mom is an art teacher, so hopefully I can get some basic sketches
All
down.
right, so 2010. Well, the tablet is kind of included in this to a certain degree. But I'd say that the next era would be the phone era. And that started in 2015. By the way, though, when I say the phone era, draw it horizontally.
Oh, why is that? Why would I draw it horizontally? Because don't people hold their phones like this?
No, but when you're watching YouTube on your phone, you wanted to watch it horizontally, okay?
Yeah. And like to your point, right? In 2007, I remember one of the very first apps that was pre-installed when there wasn't even an app store on the iPhone was a YouTube app. And if you clicked on a video, you would turn your phone horizontally to watch that video.
Of course, because all videos are. So you have to draw that horizontally.
So really, I'm going to draw an X over this because I misdrew it. But here, I'm going to draw
Why
it
didn't
like
you just erase it?
I'll slowly erase it in the
No, it's
background
okay.
here.
I'm just playing. You can do whatever you want. Now, that was 2015. But guess what was also popping up during that era? Now, this had nothing to do with the device. It had more so to do with the type of apps and platforms that are coming online. Now, you don't have to draw this, but this is why I say draw it horizontally for that era, okay? Because then it's all going to make sense. In 2020, it was the year of not necessarily the device as it is the platform. And that was the TikTok era. And the next device you have to draw is a vertical phone. Now content was native to the device. This is what's so crazy. People don't understand. Just holding your phone in your hand vertically and watching content may have been the one biggest benefit to TikTok more than even the content itself. No one talks about this enough because they talk about the content and the creators. They don't realize that, now you didn't have to like prop your phone up like on some kind of, holder or up against your coffee, right? You could literally just have it in your hand comfortably, and it was vertical. So this was not a device change as much as it was a app or platform and format change. But it did change how you hold your device.
And therefore, the winners of the people who were making videos for the platforms that were people who were holding their device that way.
But that's 2020.
Yeah.
What people don't understand is there was a whole nother thing being birthed during this time in 2020. The television. See, the television was this thing that we thought was something in history. I remember even thinking like, I wonder how long people are even going to have TVs. But what always kept me thinking the TV would still be relevant? Movies, HBO, even cable television, sports, right? You don't want to watch those things on a small device. What we didn't realize was we kept that for like the few times you'd watch content, right, in the evening. But what was happening, I think serendipitously, and you have to give them a little credit, YouTube was like, let's get ourselves on these televisions. Let's be part of the options for different apps that come with these smart televisions. And so as we were in the era of TikTok, right, 2020, which is also the phone, the devices are getting smaller and smaller. You're not buying, by the way, in 2020, you're not even buying, you even say this, you're probably not even buying an iPad as much or tablets.
Oh, totally.
You probably might not even need a laptop. Desktop, definitely not a thing, right? Us nerds over here trying to run podcasts, we have a desktop. I preferred working on it. But even then, like sometimes I'm just like always bringing my phone. I don't bring my laptop around. So is everybody, young people, old people, everything in between. But the television didn't change. In fact, the television just got a little bigger and a little cheaper and a little better because it was a smart TV.
Yeah.
And it was not only connected to the internet, but it was including apps that you have on your phones. The apps that weren't perfect for the apps that were perfect. Okay, the apps that weren't perfect for your phone vertical consumption. It was better for the horizontal viewing.
Yeah, yeah.
So YouTube, just like, I feel like almost unknowingly, just had perfect position. And this was crazy. They also had shorts. So they were both on the vertical viewing behavior audience's attention. And you had the option of going from that seamlessly to the TV. And you sign on in both locations. And then bam, you could like pick up the show that you were listening to on your phone on the drive home in your living room. And so there's one other thing that's happening in relation to someone like Andrew. We all got older. I'm 42 years old. So 20 years ago when this started, I was 22. Guess what? I'm definitely wanting to watch Andrew's content if I can on the television if it's an option. And you made a good point. Well, tech related stuff. So older tech people, guess what? Do they want to watch on that tiny phone when they got a 90-inch TV that they probably bought because they watch Andrew's content? So this is why looking at these eras can teach you about what's the winning strategy as a creator when it comes to creating content. But it doesn't mean it's just like 100% TVs. Remember, going back to some of those stats, it's still a percentage of it. And if you were to talk to like a short form creator, I bet you that those percentages would be totally different.
Totally. And so to me, give me one more thing. What is the year that you mark as the beginning of the TV era?
2025.
2025.
I mean, like I would say it's earlier, but 2025, it came to its maturity. And you ask every single person. We did this last year, right?
Yes.
We would ask every single person. Yeah, I watch it. Even when I bring this up, they didn't even understand. It's like, how often do you watch YouTube on your TV? It's like almost every single day. And it's like they didn't understand.
It's just like a fact of life.
Yeah, it goes back generations.
Yeah.
Like 50 years.
Yeah, seriously.
So it was so normal that it wasn't novel or new. The idea of watching internet content on your TV, that was novel and new. And that's why people didn't like make the one-on-one connection until you brought it up or you see a drawing like this.
So you say 2025, and that's why I love that, because it brings us full circle to the moment that you were talking about with Patty Galloway, that you noticed that. It brings us to this moment of what we see with Andrew Edwards and Stephen Robles, and of course on your channels as well. But I do want to rewind just a little bit, because actually there's a little bit of our story that fits into this and actually explains the next turn, because this is something that you and I have talked about for the past couple of years, and here's why. In late 2023, you and I started working together because you wanted to put together a course. You know, you're at the point in your career where you've been around for almost 20 years at that point doing this YouTube thing, and you decided, hey, what I want to do is start teaching people the things that I am noticing and understanding about YouTube so the next generation can get their start, just like you've always done with things like YouTube Secrets and video influencers, etc. And so I was on board. We started putting together a course, and we actually decided that the best thing to do would be to teach a course about vlogging. And so you and I started working together on something that we called Vlogging Academy. And that was because you noticed that vlogging was coming back. Now, this is 2023. You'll notice it's a little before this time period. And we spent that was the end of 2023. And so we spent all of 2024 coaching students how to take advantage of that vlogging opportunity. And at the end of that year, we were looking for new ways that we could level up. What was the next turn for Vlogging Academy? So we went back to the drawing board. We started rebuilding this course from square one. And I'm just going to say it right now. It was like the biggest stroke of luck. It was totally incredible that at the same time, YouTube CEO Neil Mohan published this letter that completely changed how you and I thought about everything as it relates to YouTube. Now, we kind of, by the way, we hadn't been thinking about this TV thing at this point yet. We were just thinking about vlogging. And we saw this, and this is one of the things that he said in the first paragraph. This year marks YouTube's 20th birthday. In 2 decades, YouTube has transformed culture through video and built a thriving creative economy. Today's creators have moved from filming grainy videos of themselves on desktop computers to building studios and producing popular talk shows and feature-length films. And people aren't just watching YouTube on their computers or phones. TV has surpassed mobile and is now the primary device for YouTube viewing in the US by watch time. Benji, of course, I'm assuming you remember reading this because I feel like it was a perspective shift for us. Tell me about the moment that you heard Neil say this.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that we were already doing something and maybe ahead of the rest of the creator community, and it was being acknowledged by the leader of our favorite platform, YouTube,
Yes.
right? The CEO Neil Mohan. And so it wasn't even a surprise. What was a surprise is the fact that they're going all in even more so. They're like, we want to grow this even more. We want to dominate. And they were dominating like on all fronts. It was almost unreal because at this point, YouTube's the old man on the block.
Yes.
It is like the like my parents watch it. I don't want to be on YouTube or whatever. Like we used to say everyone aspire to be YouTubers. I actually think that's shifting. I thought it was going to be like TikTokers. I think just the idea of being a creator wasn't just synonymous or like attributed to being on YouTube. It was like all platforms. And so like him announcing this and saying we're back and we're better than ever, I was like, whoa.
So the mid 2010s, when you were publishing this book, I remember you thinking, you mentioned this to me. You're like, okay, we got at least another 10 years or so of this thing left. Right? So like that brings us to 2025, right? But like you look at this now and you're like, it's almost absurd how much runway you see when Neil publishes that type of post, right?
That book needs a third edition. Let's just say that.
There you go. I'll let you think about it for a second or two. And so this is all a meandering way of me saying one really important thing. And I told you, again, there were two angles into this discussion, and we're just talking about the first one now. Here's the most important thing. If you looked at a pie chart of watch time by viewing device over the years, it might look like something like this. In 2005, to your point, actually, I don't know if this is up on the screen or not. Neutrally, is that showing? Let me try and reconnect. Sorry, folks. If you looked at a pie chart of view time in that 2005, when you were talking about the desktop computer, Benji, it might look something like this. Mm-hmm. It's all on the PC, of course. You wouldn't even measure it because everybody knows that you get to YouTube by going to your computer and going to youtube.com. Okay, so then we get to that kind of tablet and mobile era, and suddenly you might start thinking, well, hey, this little mobile thing's really kind of taking off, and like YouTube's over here, right? But mobile is really growing, right? Mm-hmm. And by 2015, and I remember doing this because I was with you doing video influencer stuff with you and Sean at VidCon, they were like, oh, hey guys, mobile has taken over. It's like more than 50%. Right.
We need to work on your paint skills.
Well, unfortunately, that's only scribble.
I think fill
There's
would
no
be
fill
better.
option.
There's no fill option.
I know, it's terrible.
Come on.
Come on, Apple. You got to help me out. Over the years, you might have started to see this. And really, I would say the conventional wisdom for most of that time period was make content for the phone. In fact, you would coach people to do that, right?
Take out the fluff, get right to the point. Right?
Make your thumbnail look good on a mobile phone.
Right? Don't look at it on the big screen. People's behavior is changing because it's on the phone. Just quick. I mean, we just didn't even know. We are basically, in a way, I'm not saying me and Sean are solely responsible, but we were part of the momentum that sparked Musical.ly and TikTok.
Yes.
The short form content, because it was just a quick hit, right? You wanted to get that piece of content right now, right away, and then move on to the next thing or to something else.
And so if you keep looking at this over the years, you probably saw a time where mobile was peaking near the 70% area. I mean, it was really, really high there, right? Whereas this was kind of going along. By the time that you heard that Patty Galloway thing, it might have looked a little bit more like, let me try and do another example here. It might have looked a little bit like this, where mobile was kind of like pretty big still, and like traditional computer was like this, and TV was at that 10% range, right?
Yeah.
Well, starting in 2025, based off of that post that Neil Mohan said, it's important to remember that there came a point at which TV was the dominant viewing device, more so than any other one. And so to me, this is the first way of looking at it. From YouTube's perspective, this is exactly what Andrew was saying. This is exactly what Stephen was saying. This is exactly what you were saying. This is exactly what Patty was saying. TV, and actually maybe I'll do it in the green color because that's how I was representing TV. TV is important to YouTube. And that's important to remember, because if you're someone who's wanting to be a content creator, who's wanting to be a YouTuber, well, you should probably start thinking about posting content that works on the TV, because it's important to YouTube. And so to bring things full circle here, as it turned out, the reason that vlogging was successful when you and I were starting to do Vlogging Academy was not just because vlogging was coming back, is because the TV was growing so fast. And that growth opened up room for lower production content that was more relaxed and allowed it to succeed on YouTube again as the TV was taking over.
Also, the length of it was longer and fit better for the expectation or the desire, the demand of the type of content you would want to watch on there. But it's funny, it's not because it was like super casual that it succeeded. It's because there was no competition that it succeeded. By the way, I want to bring up one thing we've never talked about.
Yeah, tell me. Ooh, this is exciting.
Why the TV spiked? Because, 2021, 10%, right? And maybe in 2022, 20%, and then maybe like 30%. It went from like 30 to 50 to 60. Like, it made this huge jump. I actually think it's remote controls. So we talked about how people are watching on the TV, right? Well, in remote controls, what you started seeing more and more was a YouTube button.
Yeah.
Now, funny enough, this is like an old remote.
Yeah, so it's got
years.
Netflix and Hulu and
But
Sling.
you know what you see on almost every single remote control that's a smart TV remote control? YouTube.
Okay, I have a story to tell you, but I want you to finish your thought.
And the fact that it's there because you saw it, right? And I remember the first time I saw YouTube on the remote control, I go, how strange that Sony would just put YouTube, but also so cool. You didn't have to turn on the TV and then pick the app and then sign in all that. No, you could literally just hit it. Because before, what would you do? You go on your YouTube app and then you cast it, or you have to turn on your TV and go to it. Not only did that turn on the TV, it went right to YouTube.
Yes.
And bam, you're off to the races. Speed, right? Speed. Convenience. And so, again, a lot of people don't talk about this. And it's interesting to me because you know what you never saw on there? You didn't see Facebook on there. You didn't see Instagram on the remote control. You didn't see TikTok. So just by default, because you're on this analog thing, that like it doesn't change.
Totally.
It's not digital. YouTube already
It's like one of the 5 buttons
it had
on
the real estate on the remote control that we'd use. When we go from our phone and we're like tired of it, what do we all do? Unless you're using a digital remote, which most people don't, right? You pick up the remote control and YouTube is right there as an option. It's not saying that you press it first. You might have pressed Netflix or even Hulu or Amazon Prime. Those are the common ones. And now I see Disney Plus. I use that button. But YouTube being on there, and then I think more simply just being on the TV as an option, that's where you see this crazy jump. It got so easy to watch YouTube content on the TV. And it wasn't just that YouTube had the content that was for the TV compared to all the other platforms.
Yes.
So it's multiple things. I just never thought about this remote control as being the point is this. It got easier and it became known that you could watch YouTube content. And so for those vloggers on YouTube, they're doing like 15-minute episodes. I'm like, this is working. They didn't even, most creators don't look at their analytics. I didn't even care to look at the analytics. I saw this by accident happening, not knowing what was going on. When I created Vlogging Academy with you, I was just thinking, people want to watch longer vlogs. I didn't make the connection to the fact that they were watching on the TV and that's why they wanted it to be longer. I just thought they wanted opposite of short form. True. But part of the reason it was super long, right? They actually say 1 to 2 hour videos performs better than even like a 30 or 40-minute videos. Is because on the TV, you just leave it on.
And guess what? To your point, you don't want to be clicking that button 100 times like you would if you were swiping on TikTok.
You just want to, unless you're looking for something on Netflix, then you're spending 20 minutes looking for a movie and then you might click forever. But the point is this. Once you decide on what you watch, you're locked in maybe for 1 to 2 hours. And it's okay if it's just one thing.
And so that brings me back to the lesson of this first angle one more time, which again, we've shown in this graph, which is that TV is important to YouTube. And if you want to find success on YouTube, you should be focused on the TV. Now, I have a couple of things because we're going to take a small little break here in the middle. But you talked a lot about the vision of Google to give away the Chromecast and have the convenience there and have the presence in the living room at all, have something physical there that could make this work in any way. You're right. They are a very savvy company. And to your point about the remotes, do you know how they choose to get those buttons on the remotes?
I don't know.
The companies pay for them. And so if the company thinks it's important,
That makes sense.
If they think it's important enough to be in the living room, what will they do? They'll pay a big sum of money to whoever the manufacturer is to get their button on the remote. And so the fact that YouTube was showing up on those remotes is not really that big of a surprise in the end. Because guess what? YouTube was making their push into the living room strategically. And so when I say TV is important to YouTube, I mean it to the point where they're willing to pay probably millions of dollars to get their button on a remote like that. There's one more story that I want to say before we get to our break, which is that about 10 years ago, and this is the one that you were relating to, we were at a VidCon event where we sat in the big grand hall room, because in VidCon they separate it. They've got like a kind of fan tier, they've got kind of a creator tier, and they've got an industry tier. Way up at that industry tier, of course, YouTube is one of the big speakers that kind of says what's going on in their minds. And YouTube's CEO, I don't know if this is still true, but back in the day, they would go and they would speak there. And
Susan was speaking that year.
Yeah, Susan Wojcicki was the CEO at the time. And you remember what she said?
About the advertising?
About the advertising and the TV and
I
YouTube.
remember I remember the actual slide, because I went and drew it for people and showed it to people, and it showed how much attention YouTube was getting from an audience compared to TV.
You want to draw it?
Which, I mean, yeah, like I guess we could
Give it your best shot here. This is the first time we've ever done this, guys.
Yeah, if I can remember. I would love to like find this thing. I remember this was like probably one of the mind-blowing moments. So Susan Wojcicki said, we'll just say this is TV. This is YouTube, okay? It's weird that it looks the same. Okay? And we'll say this bar represents how much attention, right, TV was getting. And I don't even know what the numbers were, but like YouTube was like kind of like neck and neck.
Yeah, it was at least getting there in terms of total like watch time,
it was a little
attention,
bit less, right?
Views.
Okay, so this is the attention. We'll just put ETT. This is the amount of time people were spending on the television versus that. Now let's go over here for ads.
And this is in dollar amounts.
Okay. It was like ridiculous.
Like it broke the chart. It was off the screen practically.
It was like the top.
Yes.
This is how much advertisers, hence the dollar mark, was spending on television. Guess what YouTube was getting spent on? It was like stupid. Now, what's crazy, again, I need to get better at this. What's crazy about this graph was I was benefiting from this. And it was big money for me.
Yeah.
Right? I remember thinking like, whoa, I remember saying like, if that's how much is being spent on YouTube and I'm making this kind of money, right? I mean, we were becoming millionaires.
Yes.
Judy and I were becoming millionaires. In this era, I was like, what's going to happen like 5 or 10 years from now? Because this is crazy. And I think people generally in the media space understand this concept, that even though TV had about the same amount of attention as YouTube, advertisers trusted that platform and didn't even think twice about spending way more money. And so I was like, dang, like this shows you there's still a runway. This is where the whole idea that YouTube has more room to run, because if YouTube's this successful with this little advertising income compared to TV, well, what happens when, like, again, the advertisers figure out it's better ROI to go to YouTube? Well, there's going to be more money. That means they can hire better people in the team. The company's just going to get more savvy. They can buy more buttons on remote controls. And it actually happened, right? Like, and so one thing that I think I benefited from, you were part of it, is that I would actually care when I went to VidCon
Yes.
about what was happening in the greater space of media and content, even before people realized like it'd be all in one thing.
I 100% agree. And that is a great place to leave us in a cliffhanger, because Susan Wojcicki becoming right about this did not happen until about that era where Neil Mohan said that we had made the shift where TV was number one on YouTube. And I did say there was another angle, and in 2026, the most important one is related to that. But we're going to get to that right after this message, because this week we're brought to you by the wonderful students at Vlogging Academy. We did just talk about Vlogging Academy, but in a nut, Vlogging Academy is the first ever vlogging system designed for the new era of YouTube. Now, Benji, I feel like we don't need to even explain that much because we just talk so much about it. But tell me about what inspired Vlogging Academy and why you think it's still relevant today, and what you think that creators who are watching this should know in order to understand about the vlogging space and why Vlogging Academy makes sense.
Yeah, well, a lot of people want to become vloggers, not just because of people like my wife or Casey Neistat, but that's like the dream. You get to vlog your whole life. You get to create content around what you do and what you love, and you get paid to do it. And that era was from really over 15 years ago, okay, when daily vlogging was a thing. But it was always like a secondary channel, because you usually had to have a big influence of people watching your main content. So for my wife, it was her beauty and hair content. And because of that, they wanted to watch more of her life, right? Hence the name of her channel, It's Judy's Life. It was supposed to be throwaway content, but that was the beginning and the birth of vlogging. Literally, Judy was one of the pioneers in that, along with Casey. So when fast forward 10 years later, 15 years later, people still want to vlog. Part of it is they're seeing vlogs blow up, get more views. Well, we just explained why. But when they start a vlog, they start it the old way. They don't understand like you need a big influence to do it that way, right? You have to be a great editor, produce like crazy content, drones, graphics, music, all that kind of stuff. And so they're trying to do it and it's failing. Why? Compared to the new vlog channels, because the new vlog channels are doing it the new way. And I call it the new vlog method. The short version of it, they're focused on a specific interest. You're no longer vlogging all of your day. You're just vlogging one part of your day. You're not vlogging for everybody. You're vlogging for one type of viewer. Okay, so you're getting much more focus. And that's where we come up with the 3 T's of vlogging, right? You have a theme for your channel. You have a topic or takeaway for each vlog. And then you tell more stories. Well, what's crazy is when you put all of those 3 together, you can do a longer vlog because around this interest, the algorithm suggests your content even if they're not subscribed to you. And that's why this works. And then if you slap the TV opportunity on it, you can do a longer video. Well, guess what? You can get more ads. You make more money. You can get brand deals. And so this is the new vlog method that I'm teaching and why it works compared to doing it the old way. Some people are doing it the old way still, and It works. But it's such a minority. And the new way works for everybody, even if you don't have any subscribers and you had no experience. There's people literally starting out in their first month getting 100,000 views on a video because they're doing it this new way. I didn't make it up. There was other creators who are doing it. I just kind of like put it into like a package that you can understand and learn from and do it for your own channel in your own content. And that's why Vlogging Academy is so valuable for especially new creators, but all creators.
And I think the most personal thing for me is that, we started working together because you needed an editor for your channel. It was your cooking channel, your food channel. And I find it amazing that you went through this period where you were observing this and you thought, hey, let's try and revive this old channel of mine that is kind of dusty on the shelf a little bit and see what happens. And it became its full self again, actually even greater than it was back when we first started working on it. And so if you want to be part of the community benefiting from these changes and benefiting from this new, from the TV era, as we've talked about, you can visit vloggingacademy.com to sign up. And if you have questions, you can email us at hello@vloggingacademy.com and we'll respond to you. Drop us a line. Again, vloggingacademy.com. Thank you to the students of Vlogging Academy, who are some of the people who make this show possible. Now, when we left off, we had just discovered how important TV was to YouTube. And so what is the other angle into this crazy world of TV and creators? And I think it begins with this picture here. Benji, when you take a look at this, I know it's a little bit small on our screen. Do you recognize anybody who's standing there? In
The
this?
first one is Johnny Harris.
Johnny Harris.
Right? Is he in there?
I think so.
Like
Actually, I'm not even sure. I only recognize a few.
Let me just look.
Yeah, he's going to go in and take a close.
It's Johnny Harris, okay? And so the reason Johnny Harris stands out is because I'm a fan of his content, and he loves maps. He likes geopolitics and history.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah, he was from what was that channel? I think he was from another platform. He's one of these creators that left these bigger, companies.
Yes.
Started his
Went
own
solo.
channel and did similar content. So why he stands out for the context of this discussion, he has legit documentaries about geopolitics, about countries, and more specifically about like maps. He loves maps, and he talks about why maps are this way, or he just covers all kinds of topics. But these are sometimes like 30 and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
They're highly produced. I watch them on my Google Home Hub display, and sometimes my phone, or sometimes my TV. And I'm just sitting there washing dishes, and he's just talking to me. And it's just crazy. Like, somebody so nerdy about this stuff that I like creates this show that's free, 100% free. Does make money on ads and all that, but it's a show. He's creating a show, and I love his show. And it's called Johnny Harris. That's what's funny.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah, so this image, again, is something that Neil Mohan, the CEO of YouTube, posted, actually now at this point, almost exactly a week ago. And I looked at this and I was like, oh, this is an interesting group of people to show up in a picture together. And there's probably a reason why. Now,
Probably Brandcast.
there's a couple that stand out to me. We'll talk about that in a second. Obviously, Neil does as well. But I also see some personalities from traditional media as well, like Trevor Noah, right? I see on the left, Kareem Rama.
That comedian?
He is the guy who does Subway Takes. And so I highlight him because almost 2 months ago, we held the Seattle Creator Summit. And you gave me the privilege here of speaking as an opening speaker to our audience that came. And my task was to speak about the way that we were thinking about content in 2026. And I had one single message, which, of course, now for those of you who are watching, is probably no surprise. We are in the TV era, which means we can learn from what was happening on TV and apply it to the TV era on YouTube. And so the question was, what plays on TV? And the answer was really simple. Shows do, which you've already hinted at. And I think that the shining example that I gave in my talk was Kareem, right here, as you can see, Subway Takes. His show is Subway Takes. And Subway Takes, for those who don't know, started out as what creators call a series. That's the word I hear creators use all the time. It's a series on TikTok. And Kareem would basically go, what's your take? The guest on the show, they're on the New York City subway. They would give them kind of a hot take of some kind. He'd either say 100% agree or 100% disagree. And then they just discuss for 20 to 30 seconds.
And it's horizontal?
It's vertical on TikTok.
Oh, it is vertical, but it's horizontal on YouTube?
So it started out as a vertical format on
Yes.
TikTok. And after massive success on short form, he expanded it to long form and went horizontal. And so how did he do that? Well, the answer was really simple, which is that he took the format of that show and expanded it to make it work on the TV. Expand it to make it work in 30-minute segments, 15-minute segments, which basically is not that hard. You ask them for their take, they give it to you, and you talk. You just extend the talking, or you ask them for another take and you talk again. And so the way that he did it is he took the format and expanded it to fit longer videos. And that, to me, again, is the distinction. Creators call these series. I call them shows. And back when I was talking about this beforehand, that was the point that I was trying to make. Shows are the thing that are going to make things happen in 2026. And that's why I call it show theory. And so there were three main points that I had when it came to show theory that were all learned from someone like Kareem. The first one, we are in the TV era. Very simple. I don't need to explain that to anybody else because we explained it for half an hour. Second one, shows are what wins on TV. That's exactly what we just discussed with Subway Takes as the shining star and as an example. And the third one, if you want to know how to take advantage of this, shows have a format. In fact, I had a slide that was like format. It's the most important thing when it comes to a show. And again, Subway Takes is the perfect example of that. So I ended, first of all, I'm curious about what your thoughts are about these 3 pillars, but I want to talk about the thing that I ended my talk with in just a second, which is it was a tease that we think that this is important if you want to find success on YouTube. But the format is the valuable thing. It's the thing that people are going to pay for. So before we get into that, what are your reactions to this as we go through so far?
You're a genius.
Please.
No, I just, I mean, like, I stumble on these observations. I go, oh, this thing is shiny. I think it's important. And you're like, this is why it's shiny and this is why it's important. No, and so, yeah, I don't know if we're going to get into Brandcast, right? And this image, because I think that when I hear about this, this is huge for creators.
Yes.
You're already perfectly positioned if you know how to create content. You're better positioned if you create content on YouTube, especially long format. Doesn't have to be just horizontal. It can also be vertical.
Yes.
The skill and the experience and also the audience to be able to do this, it's kind of like, you know, in NFL, what's the big thing? The Columbine, right? Where you try out. Like, you're in that.
Yes.
And all you have to do is run really fast, like you already know how to do. And someone's going to see you like, I want to work with this person. Brands already do it for sponsored content to promote products. I think people are going to throw money at creators just because you are creating content, not because you're going to promote their product or whatever.
Which is a great reason to get to the clip. And this is me speaking at the Seattle Creator Summit. And again, keep these 3 pillars in mind. I think that the idea of selling a show for brand deals to a studio like Netflix to anything else is a huge economic development for creators because it gives you, like I said, an asset in the format that you can shop around to different people. Because think about it, everything that makes it good for an audience also makes it good for advertisers. It's predictable. You kind of know what you're getting for it. It can be brand safe because they know what to expect out of it. And there's nothing that advertisers like more than predictability. So my thought was that we were about to see a huge shift in the way that the most successful creators got paid for their work, which is exactly what you were just hinting at. And that shift was in selling advertising on shows, which brings us back to this image. Now, what stood out to me was the caption, and to Benji's point, it talks about Brandcast here. So Neil Mohan says, what a way to kick off Upfronts week with so many @YouTube creators in town for #Brandcast. See you at the show tonight. Benji, tell me what Brandcast is and what your experience is with Brandcast.
Yeah, so obviously YouTube is a subsidiary of Google. And what makes YouTube unique to creators is that they pay you through the ads that the Google AdSense platform runs on your video. So these are the commercials. Well, every single year, YouTube hosts a lot of these advertisers, not just the brands, but also the agencies in the advertising world. So think, what's that 150 show? Mad Men? Is it Mad Men?
I think so, yeah.
Right? Is it Mad Men, Nuccioli?
The one where there's advertising stuff? Yeah, Mad Men.
Yeah, okay. All those people in New York City, obviously the 2025 version of it, go and watch this big presentation. And they usually have an A-list celebrity performing. Okay, Judy's actually been to it. What's unique about us in our relationship to it, for many years, Judy was one of the examples they would use in their PowerPoint. I would get photos from our friends, colleagues, people that work in the advertising world of Judy's screenshot, which sometimes was at the very beginning of the presentation. Judy would be like the first slide. These are the type of creators you can look forward to advertising with.
It's crazy.
Judy, family friendly, mom of 3 beautiful daughters. She's been vlogging and creating content as a lifestyle creator, right? And you get to work with creators like this when you advertise with Google AdSense. And so that's why it's a big deal to us. And they still obviously do it. I don't think Jay used Judy as an example, but I mean, we're talking that was 10 years ago. And so Brandcast is just an important part, not just for YouTube, but for Google, because that's how they make money.
Totally. And so Brandcast is where they're selling their ads to be watched on YouTube, basically convincing advertisers that it's worthwhile to advertise on YouTube. So that was one keyword that stood out to me. The other one was Upfronts week. Are you familiar with that terminology? I wasn't either until I saw this. And what it did is that brandcast keyword combined with the upfront suite keyword shows me exactly where Neil Mohan, again, the CEO of YouTube itself, has his head at. Upfronts week, and the reason we don't know about it, is a traditional media industry term. And what it is it's the week in May where traditional broadcasters go to New York City, like in Mad Men, and say, here are all of the shows that we're going to show on our network for the foreseeable future. And so imagine NBC going to Upfronts Week in New York City, having a beautiful banquet hall, inviting all of their beautiful A-list celebrities, inviting a great performer to do something, and then saying, advertisers, do you want to buy advertising on The Office? Oh, you do? Okay, great. And then they wheel and deal. YouTube is now framing Brandcast as specifically designed to work in Upfronts Week. They call those upfronts because you're buying the advertising up front of the show happening. And so Neil Mohan is now talking to advertisers as if he was a broadcast executive. Because guess what? More and more, he is.
And that's why that picture is like, hey, these are my shows. These are my celebrities I'm bringing with you. And some of them are recognized, right? Some of them might have like cult followings, like a Johnny Harris. That's not A-list, but I bet you a lot of people at Brandcast in the world, like I'm a good example of it, know who he is. He might be a bigger star than an A-list celebrity, but you just don't think of him that way. Oh, that's crazy. So that YouTube has become one of the networks.
They've straight up become one of the networks. And so YouTube holding Brandcast again, this time specifically talking about upfronts, which means they're acting a lot more like those broadcast networks. And again, this post starts making more and more sense because Neil is selling these creators now and selling their content the same way NBC would sell advertising against The Office. So one example of this is from reported by Mia Sato from The Verge, who says YouTube is courting creators and sponsors with streaming shows. And the example that she gives here is Trevor Noah, who's releasing a new show on YouTube. That other person that I noticed in there. Here's what Mia says. In the ongoing fight for content and talent, YouTube is pitching itself as the connector between creators and advertisers and marketing its creators as not just the future of social media, but also the future of advertising, TV, streaming, and entertainment more broadly. At the company's annual advertisers event in New York City on Wednesday, YouTube introduced a new slate of exclusive shows coming to the platform, hosted by some big names. A travel show with Trevor Noah, a Met Gala documentary series with podcaster Alex Cooper, a new series from Kareem Rama, the host of popular show Subway Takes, and more. The pitch to advertisers: invest in these YouTube-only series. And I would say in these YouTube-only shows. So here are my questions coming out of this. First of all, this is plenty for us to talk about. This is crazy. There's even deeper to go, but I want to pause here again because here are my questions immediately. Well, first of all, think something I noticed. It's a mix of creators from traditional TV who have kind of migrated over, right? But here are my questions. Is YouTube pitching brand deals? Or are they pitching advertising on YouTube? It's kind of interesting kind of dynamic there if they're pitching specific shows now rather than just content creators as an example. Second one, does YouTube have ownership over those shows? I mean, because they tried that before with YouTube Originals and like YouTube Red and all that stuff before. That didn't work out. And so what was the deal there? And then third one is why these creators? So I'm curious about what your thoughts are too at reacting to this now that you realize that Neil is acting like a broadcast executive.
Well, what's more powerful than attention, which YouTube commanded forever?
Money?
Right? Affinity.
Trust.
And what happens, like, for example, what's one of the most popular shows of the late 90s, early 2000s? What's like the first one that comes to your mind? Late 90s, early 2000s, what was the biggest show? Can you guess, Nugely?
I actually don't know.
The biggest show that's just like sitcom. Fresh Prince would have been a little older, but you were going in the right direction. Friends.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Both of those are good examples of it, okay? But let's pick one character, Rachel. You know how many people styled their hair like Rachel? How many females went and dressed like Rachel? Judy was one of them, okay? She became an icon. There's an affinity to her. Would you agree?
100%.
Okay. So it wasn't just the attention, it was affinity to these people.
Yeah, both the actor and the character, by the way, not just one or the other.
So what did I say? They were starting to dress like her.
Yeah.
So certain brands would sell more products because she would wear their clothes, right? Certain maybe hairstyles with the and that could be the products. What do we know about A-list celebrities, like female ones? What is like the epitome in terms of a brand deal? Being the ambassador for L'Oreal or something like
True,
that.
yeah.
Biggest money. Okay. So we talk about how there's this convergence of the online content and television, right? Online creators and the dream opportunities. It's just all mixing. And that picture is a good example of it. Because you know what I used to say when I see YouTube doing these kind of things, like the Trevor Noah thing, right? Was like, oh, another A-list celebrity getting paid a lot of money to come to YouTube. They had this kind of era, okay? Well, now I don't think that because it's mixed in. But why would they have someone like a Johnny Harris, who is definitely an online talent, and someone like a Trevor Noah, who is a TV talent, and they would have them? Two reasons. They both are professionals who can already run a show, put on a show, but continue doing the show. You have to have that. Think about it. Can you imagine if they replaced Rachel? It would have broke everything. It just wouldn't have worked, okay? That's why everyone fell in love with that character and with Jennifer Aniston. But the other part of it is when you have a star, there's going to be an affinity to those people, and brands want to sponsor the shows, but they more importantly want to sponsor them.
Yeah.
And so I actually randomly, I don't know how this popped up, maybe again, the algorithm, I saw an article about Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper's kind of making a comeback.
Yeah.
And one of their strategies, they want to create a show. And they're looking to like come up with this idea of like, how do we make a show around Dr. Pepper?
Interesting.
By the way, this can be as simple as like, let's just make a hit show and Dr. Pepper's being held by the character or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, what's going to happen is if you love this show and you fall in love with this character, having a Dr. Pepper might become cool. So just not even the taste of it, just like, hey, it's like, it's
trendy.
It's trendy. It's novel.
Yeah.
It's different. It's not like, like how like things come back into
Absolutely.
fashion or whatever. I think this is kind of what could happen. Point is this. TV stars, movie stars, in this case, YouTube stars, for this new like world of watching long form content, it's creating this new dynamic where Neil Mohan now, what's crazy, he's not just competing against other streaming platforms. Oh, he's already out competing arguably all the other like content platforms.
Yes.
So now streaming platforms and then networks. He's competing against cable.
I know.
Comcast, all these other satellite providers, okay? Like it's everything. So when I see this picture, it's like he's making, and that's one of my things about him. He's like so different than Susan because he's right there front and center.
Yes.
But this image shows me that's like, this is the big time and we're telling the world we're ready for it.
Which is a perfect transition because it finally gets us back to the second angle that I promised. Remember, the first angle was TV is important to YouTube. Here's the second angle. YouTube is important to TV. It's actually way more important. Yes, TV is important to YouTube. It's the number one viewing device. It's the thing that all of us as creators are noticing, that TV is taking over our watch time graphs. But the thing we don't see, unless you go looking for it, is that YouTube is important to TV. Again, YouTube is important to TV. Now, why is that important? Because who has the money? TV, especially traditional broadcast TV, as you were pointing out. So take a look at this. Now, I'm not necessarily going to even start with broadcast TV because let's just start with streaming. First of all, when I talk to people about the biggest streaming service that they're thinking of, they think Netflix, they think Disney, they think Prime. Those are the big three. Sometimes, I mean, we talked a lot about in the show about the competition between Netflix and Paramount for Warner Bros. Discovery. But like, look at Paramount and Warner Bros. At the bottom. They're like basically non-existent,
Crazy.
which is crazy to think about. You know what almost no one says to me? YouTube. But who's number one? YouTube. YouTube is the biggest streaming platform out there, period.
This is the amount of attention.
This is amount of attention, which is the most important metric. Now, this is interesting in its own right. And this shows you why YouTube would be important to streaming. But it doesn't necessarily show you why it's important to TV. This is why it's important to TV. Because when you zoom out, we talked about this for a year now. It was actually almost exactly a year ago in May of 2025, which is why I'm showing you the year-old graphic here, that this number right here, 44.8%, outpaced this number right here, which 20.1 plus 24.1 would be 44.2%. That's less than this. These are the NBCs of the world. These are the ABCs of the world. These are the, CNNs of the world, the cables as well. Streaming has beaten broadcast TV, and YouTube has beaten streaming. And so if you're an advertiser who's looking at this Nielsen gauge, again, Nielsen is the thing that advertisers look at to decide where to spend money, and you look and you say, oh, streaming's more important than broadcast, I'm going to start spending on streaming. Who's winning in streaming? Where should I go spend? YouTube. So YouTube is important to TV because advertisers are spending money there. And so this gets us to the battle lines and finally brings us all the way home. When I look at this, this is what I see. Through 2026, the first thing that you're going to see is the competition between YouTube and streaming, which we just looked at. Netflix right now, more than ever, is thinking about their competition with YouTube because they want to make more money and they've run out of subscribers. So how do they do it? They're going to start advertising, which I'll show you in just a second. Here's the second battle line. Streaming as a whole and broadcast TV. Broadcast has already lost this battle, as we just saw. But more and more and more, streaming platforms, including YouTube, will start taking money away from traditional broadcasting. So whenever you turn on your favorite sports that you're watching, whenever you turn on your local news and you see those advertising dollars there that fund those programs, every single day, their share of the advertising dollars goes smaller and smaller and smaller. Every single advertiser that you see there will, in the next 10 years, start advertising on YouTube and not on TV. So that's the second battle line. The third one is a little bit of a dark horse, and it's something we've talked about in the past, and I'm not going to go into depth here, but it's actually daytime viewing versus nighttime viewing. And the reason I bring this up is because when you look at the YouTube versus streaming debate, the Netflixes of the world are winning over here, and the YouTubes of the world are winning over here. And when you look at the slate of the slate of shows that Neil Mohan is advertising on there, what is he trying to do?
For nighttime viewers?
They're trying to compete in the nighttime space. So just something to keep an eye on as we move forward. So daytime and nighttime is the third battle line. And the fourth one is something that we haven't gotten to talk about, but we'll see it for a future show, which is YouTube or long form versus short form. These are the four most important pillars of competition. And at the center of them all is YouTube. This is why YouTube is the most important platform of the next 10 years, in my opinion. Because yes, they are facing competition with short form. Yes, they are facing competition from the streamers. Yes, they are facing competition from the linear space, but they're facing competition from all of those players because they're the king of the hill and everybody wants to be the king of the hill. And so this is all to say that if there's one thing that you as a creator need to know for 2026, you need to know that you should be creating a show, which means that you need a format that is repeatable, that you can do over and over again. And that's my spiel to you, Benji, is that this is the beginning of the 2026, or the beginning of the mid-2020s to 2030s of this competition that YouTube is going to put on with the rest of the world. Any big takeaways?
Yeah, let's bring back that image of you doing all the drawing of the different eras.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I think that it will show up here if I do this.
Might not.
No, this is the other one. But you can talk about it and I'll bring it up.
Because I think that that was one thing that you basically wanted to bring up to creators and talk about, right? That a show is a way to wrap your head around what you should be creating as a creator, right?
Yes.
It's the type of content. Well, you didn't mention it this whole thing, but what do I always say about a show? Guaranteed satisfaction. So set aside daytime or nighttime, streaming or TV. It just have to be guaranteed satisfaction. That's what's going to make people come back every single day. That's the practical thing you should be thinking about. This is why consistency is important, not just in the day, but and the time, but also just like you're going to deliver.
Yes.
because they want that. And if they don't get guaranteed satisfaction from you,
The same characters, the same format, the same storylines.
where do we get this from? Us just observing what worked in the 90s and the 2000s. Obviously, there's been shows since, and all those shows guarantee satisfaction. Every single episode that comes out, you're going to generally have a certain level of excitement, happiness, sadness, emotions, whatever it is that you like about that show, you're going to get that. That's why like old school YouTubers who kind of just do whatever they want in this era might not have the best opportunities.
Yes.
This is why I made a comment about all those people that Neil Mohan was on stage with. Those guys are professionals.
Yes.
They are pros. They show up to work. They're consistent. They deliver no matter what. They probably have a whole line of episodes. I'm talking about more of the YouTube shows and creators versus like the Trevor Noah's, right? Like those guys are working on a world that I think that most creators can't even fathom.
Yeah.
They plan it years ahead. They film the whole season out. It's ready to go. Because what are they trying to do? Hit that consistency every single Sunday evening. Right now, like our show that we're watching now is called the Dutton Ranch. So it's another spinoff of Yellowstone.
Oh, got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the daughter and the daughter's husband, right, who are integral characters, started the Dutton Ranch. So every Sunday, that show that's already been recorded, produced, and uploaded to the platform. They're just like, it's probably
Release.
automated on
Yeah.
the release too.
Yeah.
Okay, but what is it? Guaranteed satisfaction. There's nothing that guarantees satisfaction like this show for us.
And it's not even just that show. It's the fact that they took characters that you already loved and put them into a new show.
Let me get this back.
I don't know if you're going to be able to see because
Oh,
I
yeah.
ran into some issues here.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Well, can you give me a blank paper?
I can try to here. Give it back
Okay.
to me.
Even if I can't, give me a blank one. If not, it's not a big deal. I can even do it visually on here, okay, with my hands.
Oh, yeah. No, we got it.
Does it work?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to draw this last one. So the question was in 2026, the challenge was this. As a creator, you had to make the decision. Are you going to be long form on the TV or bigger devices, right? We're going to discuss YouTube. So this is the TV, or long, right? Or are you going to go short, right? Like we're talking short form and shorter. That was the thing that you as a creator need to make a decision on. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter anymore. As long as you have a show, both of these work for that.
Yes.
And that was my new big takeaway at the last, Seattle Creator Summit that we just put on, that I wanted to tell people. As long as you have a show, which is what? Guaranteed. Okay, I'm getting nervous now because I have to spell on live.
Nailed it.
Guaranteed
Satisfaction.
satisfaction.
Thanks, Nooch.
Everything Austin just talked about, you're going to get to take advantage of it, and you will get those opportunities. And it doesn't matter if it's vertical or horizontal.
Or whether you're at Brandcast or not.
Or if you're on TikTok or YouTube even.
Yes.
So we put it into the discussion of YouTube because we're definitely biased to YouTube. We're pro YouTube. But what I found out is like, I'm actually meeting up with a creator tomorrow who has a legit show on TikTok. Better views on TikTok than it does on Instagram. He gets good views on both. My point is this. It's not the platform or the format. It's your ability to create content that's a show and create guaranteed satisfaction that, of course, number one, will help you on these platforms in these formats. But two, take advantage of these opportunities because I'm telling you, there's producers or even advertising agencies. I talked about Dr. Pepper. They're going to see you as a creator and it's like, we want to be part of this magic. And if you can do what one of those people on stage are there for because they can do, this is where it gets crazy. The money in this new era, in this new world that has not been available, right? I gave YouTube a lot of shit like 10 years ago when they gave millions of dollars away to all these A-list celebrities, and literally 99.9% of shows all failed.
Yes.
They took the money and they went back home, okay? There's only one show that I can remotely remember. It was Kid President.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Okay?
Yeah.
And even that's not even around, is it?
No.
Like even a thing. And so that's the big takeaway for a creator. You already know you can create content, right? Short form or long form, horizontal or vertical, right? Really long or really short, doesn't really matter. Now you're like, create the show that's guaranteed satisfaction. What it means to you as a show, it doesn't have to be what another show is. It just has to be consistent, that people look forward to, they're obsessed with it. They will watch either every single day or every week. Some cases, like Mark Rober is a good example, once a month.
Yeah.
That's still a show to a certain degree.
Deep Pocket Monsters, another great example.
You got to find your balance. And it just depends. And if you can do that, you can take advantage, because what I'm saying is there's no distinction anymore between TV and the online content world.
Yes.
It's all one big same thing. People don't care. Now, if you can be like the Subway Takes, is that what it's called? The Subway Takes, where you do both vertical and horizontal, that's winning. And by the way, Ecamm, that's the software that we use to not only go live, create content that's both horizontal and vertical from one recording session. I am telling you, that's a skill in itself that is going to become so valuable, because you might not have to wait for the advertisers or a platform to come to you. You can do it on your own and create the attention and better, I've never used this word before, the affinity with an audience, and then you're off to the races, because you can do for yourself what you would need them to do. Now, of course, I'm also biased to brand deals, because there's a lot of money to be made there. And that's the skill. That is the goal in 2026 and moving forward, maybe for like 4 to 10 years, because it's the Wild West again. We're all racing on the prairies and going across the fields in our wagons, if you know anything about the Wild West and us going over there. And it's not pretty, okay? And sometimes it's kind of ugly, but whoever gets to those caves or those mines where the gold is at first, you will make the most money, and you'll take advantage of the best opportunities before anybody else.
Here's the last thing. There's a ticking clock on this. And I don't mean that it's going to run out or that creators are going to stop being important or that YouTube's going to die. But when you look at this graph, exactly like what I said before, every single day that YouTube and streaming eats away at the percentage of broadcast TV is another day where you getting to those mines first is a smaller and smaller opportunity. There's still a lot of runway here, as you can see. It took many years for streaming to get this close to broadcast TV. But it's not going to be forever. And the earlier you are, the more opportunities there will be. I do not like to make definitive statements about the future, because anything can happen. This is one of the few things that I feel 100% confident in that will happen in the future. Every single day, YouTube's going to take another chunk. Netflix is going to take another chunk. YouTube's going to take another chunk, until every piece of this pie is streaming. And yes, this is a measurement of watch time, which is important. But more importantly, it's a great analog. It's a great index for the amount of dollars that are involved. And so to your point, Benji, if you want to get in on the gold rush, now is the time to start. And there's a format for you to find success starting today. Again, you can find out more about our approach at vloggingacademy.com. But vlogging is not the only answer to this question. Look at other people who are having success in shows and follow their lead. And again, think about what your show will be, and think about what kind of guaranteed satisfaction, trust, affinity, to your point, Benji, that you can bring to your audience.